second to last time. I mean, I feel like it's always the first time. I mean, that was one of the big reasons why I came here, is because this stadium, the atmosphere here was just always so much different than anywhere else. I felt like
since a kid, it's kind of been a dream to go out there and play.
Energy's always the same. Energy's always crazy.
I'm truly living the dream when I come out here and play. So I try not to take it for granted and cherish every moment.
Not too many opportunities left for seniors Jazz Peavy and Leo Musso to come charging out of that tunnel onto the field inside Camp Randall. And also, not too many chances left for me to host Badger Breakdown with Matt and Mike. We're getting towards the end of the season. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris. Thanks for joining us. We're going to start the timer on this Wednesday evening. Boom. There we go. Guys, I think from top to bottom, you called it last week, the grind of the season. From top to bottom, what we're hearing this week, which I think is really interesting, is guys said that this is the hard part of the schedule. Not earlier on in the season. This is the part where you can't slip, because then that would just really be gut-wrenching, kind of like the Northwestern game did last year. That's how you beat complacency when the schedule doesn't, on paper, look like it did back in September, October.
It becomes a little bit of a tournament-type setting now. I think that's one of the big draws to college football, the regular season. I mean, this is a team that everybody knows that if it can keep winning, it can get the division and have a chance to play in Indianapolis, so on and so forth. So everything now does get magnified. We've talked about the gauntlet. They're done with the gauntlet, right? Wrong. No, they have 3 games left, and if you trip up, you're out of the running. I mean, look what happened to A&M last week.
Right.
So that alone is a red flag for not just Wisconsin, but I think anybody in the country, that you still better bring it no matter what on paper things might look like the rest of the way.
There's a dose of reality that really keeps this team from looking at the finish line. And that reality is how they have to scramble for points. Paul Chryst addressed it this week when asked about a margin for error. There is none, or very little, let's put it that way. So I think more so than anything else, these are bright kids. They understand if they're a little bit off, if they give up more points than they normally give up, they could be in trouble.
Yeah, that question asked by our very own Andy Baggett, who wrote about how when a team's scrambling to find some points the way it is, the way coaches admitted to, you look at all of those things that has helped them win these ball games, whether it's special teams, especially last weekend in Evanston, the lack of penalties, what Andy wrote about. That is a sign of a well-coached team just trying to get there with the points.
Little historical perspective, which means nothing to today's player, but for us it gives us an idea. In 2004, Wisconsin had a great defense. It was one of the best in the history of the program. The offense was very challenged. And they were 2 weeks away from running the table in the regular season. But everything unraveled in the second half in the game against Michigan State. Everything unraveled against Iowa. The offense just couldn't score, couldn't convert, and eventually the defense broke down. And that, I think, for fans who have been around it long enough to remember that, you're kind of leery of it. Not saying that'll happen again, but to pick up on Mike's point, I mean, you need to find ways to get more touchdowns when you get in the red zone. I know a season-long theme here. The defense has been so good week in and week out. You just want to, if you can, try to give them a little relief, knowing that if you don't, you're on thin ice.
Oh, I agree with you. And the most pleasant development in many respects from the Northwestern game was the emergence of Anthony Lottie, with all the punts he had downed inside not only the 20, but inside the 5-yard line. I mean, now that becomes a weapon. If you can do that consistently, you can take a little pressure off the defense while you're still trying to establish your identity from game to game on offense.
Yeah, I don't care who you are or what school you play for. It's tough to ask a lot of, unless you're a senior that's done it, a lot of quarterbacks have taken offense 94, 95 plus yards down the field and score. Let's go back to that red zone. Had a chance to talk to both Jazz and Troy Fumagalli about where do you start when you're trying to shore up so far this season an 18 for 33, it's 55% touchdown percentage, when you're trying to get better and get down there and score 6.
Owning the details. You know, red zone so much, just that much quicker, you know, that much shorter. When we get to the red zone, we know everything has to be more precise, everything has to be exact, because the windows, at least from a receiver standpoint, everything's, you know, a lot quicker and the windows close much faster, so you have to make sure you're where you need to be when you need to be there. It's that much closer. Everything matters just a little bit more. So the details are just that much more important.
To go back to the point you just made, what about the last couple of weeks of the offensive line showing a bit of continuity, maybe the most we've seen throughout the year? How can that help, especially when we're seeing Bart and Alex both getting their chances.
Well, the continuity is great. If they've made it work by a revolving door, and they're making it work now by having a little bit more continuity. And let's face it, they're running it better. Period. These last 4 games, 200 yards plus. It really was 200 yards plus on the ground against Northwestern. You had Bart running backwards for 37 yards, whatever it was in the last 3 snaps. But that's what gives you reason to think that they're trending in the right direction, because they can move the ball on the ground. If they can continue doing that, that opens up things for Bart and Alex in the passing game. So that trend is really encouraging to see. And again, they've played really good defenses throughout the course of the season, so they understand the margin for error is small. So you hope all of that stuff can make them better as they continue to move through November.
And they're not far off from turning some of those near misses into hits. I think one of the examples was early in the game where Jazz Peavy and Hornibrook couldn't combine on what looked like a touchdown pass. And afterwards, Jazz said, well, I needed to run my route just a little bit more towards the post, give them an angle to throw to. And so those are some of the little things, really, that have kept them from executing better in the red zone.
Yeah, little things, reps, experience. It's that moment, though, when you want to see it click, when it's going to have to, right? When you're going to go up against some offenses here that doesn't matter how good your defense is playing, they may put up 28, 35 points. Clicking soon.
Yeah.
What do you think what's the last step to get there?
Do it once, twice, and then it can snowball.
Okay.
Maybe. I guess I feel better, as I wear my red here, but I feel better that they're going to bust through on offense,
It's a matter of time.
as opposed to the 0-4 scenario that I laid out, where the defense finally unraveled just because of all it had to do. I feel better about this year's group, the offense being able to pop through, because it's running the ball better. Because, as Mike said, they're understanding, okay, when there's an incomplete pass, you're thinking it's automatically bad throw, when in fact it might be a route that wasn't run right, as Mike relayed the story regarding Jazz Peavy. Jazz Peavy's having a really good year, so he's understanding he can be better still. So I guess my feeling is, if you can punch it in that early in the game, that first time, second time, then you can get on a roll from there.
And you're getting healthier with Bradrick Shaw coming back. I think we all had a chance to speak with him briefly after the game. So now you've got 1, 2, 3 Taiwan Deals dressed. We haven't seen him play recently, but 4 guys on the field who can keep running the ball the way Coach wants to, taking a little bit more pressure off the quarterbacks.
Well, I think we were all impressed with Shaw at Northwestern, and we've seen glimpses of him, like one play, a game of him, which kind of set a tone, because it got him a little confidence to the point where now they feel more comfortable using him. And he brings a different dimension, doesn't he? It's his size and kind of his explosiveness through the hole.
Yeah, as opposed to 1 or 2 carries, we saw, 10, 11 against
Right.
Northwestern too, and he has some size to him already, has a little bit of a burst. And as we're mentioning in those previous games where he's only out there for 1 carry or 2 carries, they were still significant.
Fourth quarter.
Against Ohio State, against Iowa. So, I mean, he's going in cold, and he's moving a chain, or he's setting up 2nd and 4. It matters, and he's getting more turns now. It's exciting to think that. Corey Clement, big workload. Dare having a very good year once again. It looks like there are some options at that tailback spot. When one guy's out, that doesn't mean the defense has it easy, because Dare's can do a lot of things, catching the ball out of the backfield, obviously, as well as running. And now people are getting an introduction of Bradrick Shaw, and it's pretty exciting to see what he can do.
Yeah, he almost popped one too down at Evanston. He had a couple cuts, and I think one more step and he could have popped one. Let's go time possession real quick. Wisconsin 40 minutes plus, keeping that defense fresh, giving those guys who've been injured some help. I want to stay true to the clock here, so really quick, want to toss us some sound. And got from TJ Edwards earlier in the week, said, Justin, they gave up only 7 points. What's the deal? No, of course they were all upset about that touchdown they gave up late in the first half.
You know, those things where we're missing tackles, or, there's guys who aren't on the same page with the play, just things that we do 100 times in practice that, shouldn't come up in the game. But they do, unfortunately, and that's one of the things he's just preaching on, that we're a lot better than this. We missed a couple of huge tackles. Personally, I missed one, but you learn from it, and it's something that you hate to see happen, but it does happen. You play against really good teams, so we'll learn from it and build on it.
So they want to be perfect on defense. They want to be perfect every play. That's what they expect from themselves, not from Justin. that can take you places.
Yeah, it can, and against a team like Illinois, it's a very young team. But Jeff George Jr., gaining some confidence. He's got some good, quick running backs he can turn to. Their best receiver didn't play last week. I don't know what his status will be this week, but he can be a threat. But this is a defense that's playing with a ton of confidence, and when you're mad at yourself for giving up one touchdown, it gives you an idea that you're pretty good.
Yeah, and it goes back to how they're taught about fundamentals. It's one thing if the other team makes a great play, a pass and a catch. But when you miss a tackle, and then you miss another tackle on that same drive, the yards after contact really added up, 28 and 28. And that's what probably got them upset more than anything else, because they're so good in what they do as far as executing those fundamentals. So you can understand why they were disappointed. It's one thing to credit the other guy for making a play, but you knew you were better than that, right?
Yeah, we haven't seen them miss very many tackles, so that's probably where they're mad at themselves,
Absolutely.
because they did miss a few the other day.
They did, and I think that's a mindset that's in the entire side of that locker room. They like to think if another team gets on the board somehow, some way, it's because they did something wrong
You
themselves.
make them earn it more so than there was a
Exactly.
breakdown.
That'll take you places. That's Badger Breakdown. When a pinch over 10 minutes, pardon us, but we appreciate you sticking around. That's going to do it for this week. For Matt and Mike, I'm Chris.